everybody, and welcome back. Today I'm going to be taking a look at this book, which is Painting Wargame Tanks by Ruben Torregrosa and Mig Himenez. So, as you might imagine, this is focused on painting tanks for war games. Specifically, I think we're looking at 15mm tanks, which works out really well, because right now I'm about to take my first adventure into the Tanks game from Gale Force 9. And so, although I feel like I know how to paint tanks, I thought it would be really nice to take a look at this book, which was actually given to me by one of my customers so that I might review it, which is what I'm doing. The book itself is 92 pages long. It's glossy throughout, which I apologize for because you're going to get some glare as we go through it. And it actually is broken into two sections, the easy way and the advanced way, or as the table of contents likes to refer to it, the CZ way. When I saw that, I thought, oh, that must be some clever play on words or something. But no, it's just a typo. The CZ way. The CZ way has, the easy way has 3 different tanks that covers a sort of a simpler method for getting your tanks done. And then the advanced way has 7 different tanks that they go over. And so it's really laid out a little bit more like a cookbook. Like these are specific recipes for painting these individual tanks as opposed to more general information. Although it does have some general information. Before it gets into the recipes, it does talk a little bit about pigments and what you can do with them, a little bit about acrylic paints, a little bit about airbrushing, but in each one of these cases, there's not really that much information about any of these topics. I almost feel like it's wasted space because, like the airbrush section, you know, it's like 4 little segments on how to clean your airbrush. That's it. That's all they tell you about for the airbrush. Here's how you clean it. And even then, I would call it the most minimal treatment that you could possibly do for this topic. And all the other, there's not all the other, there's pigments, there's acrylics, and there's airbrush, and that is all of the sort of general information before we go into the methods. And then, so like for example, let's take a look at this, the early Sherman. Let me see if I can dial back the light here a little bit. This seems a little bright. There, that's a little better. So for example, we'll do an early Sherman in the quote-unquote easy way, and then it talks about doing primer, and then olive drab dark base, and then olive drab light base, and tan for the stripes with an airbrush. And then it just says, and then it sort of skips. It says, after applying the decals, it's like, wait, you didn't even, so what about decals? And then clean the excess of washes, because you're going to do a wash here, sorry. And in each step, it shows you, you know, like, oh, you're going to use a brush, and then you're going to use this specific MIG product. And, you know, as you first start going through this, you kind of get that kind of Games Workshop-y feeling about this book, which is, oh, this is really geared towards selling their products. And I don't really have a problem with that. I really don't. I mean, more power to them. They want to sell their products. That's all good. The only issue is, you know, as I was initially going through these steps, I was feeling like, but it's not really telling me how to really do any of this stuff. For example, let's go with the dust phase. This is what they call the dust phase. And under the dust phase, it says, the dust phase is very simple. Just drop a bit of pigment colors over the horizontal surfaces. Use a couple of colors to give it more variety. And it does tell you, we got rubble and we got Middle East dust, so at least it gives you 2 examples of dust you can use. And then it says, now soak the surface with turpentine. You will see now how the turpentine expands very fast by capillary action. Move the pigment on the surface, distributing it around the turret and other areas. It will dry fast, but you can help him by using a hairdryer. The look will be very chaotic and ugly, but this is normal. And then now we clean and remove the excess. Now, in this case, there are 4 different steps to show you how to do the dust, which is pretty cool. But in most other situations, they just sort of tell you, do this thing, now move on. And there's really no other follow-up on that. And so you might not quite get it. And this sort of continues throughout the book as I'm going through, like chipping. It talks about just sort of, painting them in, but it just says, with dark brown tone, paint over the previous chips. Oh, where's the other chipping? Yeah, now we will use a new step, some light color chipping, use a very fine brush, and the lighter green, make some chipping in logical areas, like fenders around the hatches. That's a good basic discussion about how to do it, and then move on to the dark brown. That's fine, done. So really kind of minimal information. It's not no information, it's better than no information. And then, of course, as we move on to the advanced stages, you're going to get more advanced things talked about. For example, if you look here, let me see down here, it says, we only need 3 colors to do a fading. We use diluted paint. We could tinker with the opacity of the various layers. But then there's no real information about exactly how to achieve the result that they show here. Now, I understand how this is done. And in fact, I may review, there's another book that they sell that covers these kinds of techniques. But it's like, here you go, do that. And then move on to the next step, which is use blue tack to mask off your camouflage. And, moving on. So, again, my initial feeling was, well, that sort of skips over a lot of really important things. But later on, I started thinking about this more like a cookbook, right? When you get a cookbook, it's a book of recipes. It doesn't tell you how to fold something in. It doesn't explain what a whisk is. There's a certain understanding that you already know these things. And if you don't know these things, you will go to another book to figure them out. Now, to be fair, some cookbooks will actually give you that information in the front or the back of the book, at least basic information on how to do it, or what the terms mean, whatever. And to be fair, this does too. It does provide a little bit of that information. So if you think about it from the perspective of being a cookbook with recipes, then it feels a little bit less like you're getting cheated out of information, as opposed to you're given a step-by-step guide on how to paint these specific tanks. And then all you need to do at that point is, if you get to a step and you go, well, I don't really understand how to do that. Like, I don't know what a pin wash is. Well, you have the internet. You can go to the internet and go, what is a pin wash? And by the way, that whole, how do I achieve that one look? They actually do cover that in a little bit more detail in a later recipe, which I thought was funny. It's like, we should probably have done that in the earlier one. But anyway, so yeah, if you get to a place when you're like, I don't understand what the book means by this, it would be really easy to then go to the internet and look it up and figure out, oh, that's what it means by that. And maybe even find some videos that explain in more detail how to do that one thing. So this is a decent starting place for how to paint a tank, or how to paint these specific tanks. Although I think in many cases, the information provided, even though this is how you paint this particular tank in this particular way, the information can be applied to similar tanks with similar color schemes, and that'll still end up working out for you, and you'll still end up learning something. But there is also the element that, it's telling you how to do all this with their products. And again, can't fault them for that. They want to sell their products. Makes total sense. But I kind of like a little bit more general information myself. But finally, the pictures are amazing. And if nothing else, if I gained nothing else from this book, it would be inspirational viewing, knowing that, yeah, it is possible to paint a tank and have it look as good as this. And so I'm going to aspire to reach this level. And you can, if nothing else, you can go back to these pictures and go, oh, you know what? Maybe I want to add some chipping, or maybe I want to do some rust effects, or maybe I want to add mud to my tracks. Does that really work on what I'm doing? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But these are all ways that you can inspire yourself to do it. So in the end, I feel like I get as much out of this book as I kind of do, any magazine or any book of this type that is more general as opposed to being more specific. And as I said, they have other books that cover specific topics, and you're going to learn more about doing those techniques from those books than you do in this book. So as far as price goes, in the US, this goes for in the neighborhood of $35, but because it's kind of an import, that price can vary quite a bit depending on where you get it. As far as other complaints I have, this is translated from Spanish, and it was not fully translated. Well, it was fully translated. Like, you can easily understand everything that is said, but the language is such that it's a little clunky. Doesn't really make a difference to whether or not the information you get is good or not, but it is one of those things that you notice as you're going through it. And so I would say I recommend this book somewhat. If you are finding that you want to get into deep into how do I make my 15 millimeter tanks look awesome, I would say this is not a bad place to start, because it does give you a little breakdown of like each technique and when to do it, if not how to do it. And if you're really into buying their products, you also get a good guide on how to do that. Oh, I just noticed, I hadn't noticed this before. There's a little bit more information in this particular recipe on placing decals. So there's some things I missed. So there's maybe just slightly more information than I thought there was. Anyway, so if you think you might like it, you probably will. If you think, you know what, I'm going to save my money and just go online and research that way, it'll probably take you a little bit more time to figure all this out, but you'll do just as well. You can find all the same information online for free, as long as you don't mind putting in the extra effort to do the research on your own. But that's it. That is all I have to say about painting Wargame's tanks. So thanks a lot for watching. That's going to do it for now, and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.